Welcome back to another episode of the Barn Session. I am here with sort of somebody who I have a hard time quantifying. Normally, I run through the stat sheet, but this is Johnny DiJulius. I'm sure if you're involved in the sport in any capacity at any level, you know this name and you know who this person is. But I mean, I can run through the list right now. You three-time Ohio State champ, four-time NCAA qualifier, while being a member of that illustrious 2015 NCAA team title winning team at Ohio
Heck
State.
yeah.
You've coached at Kent State, Harvard, Cleveland State. You run clinics all over the country. Doing your 60 clinics in 60 days. You've been to what 60 plus countries at this point.
Actually,
You've
over
built a
100 now.
brand over 100 countries. You've built a brand, Live No Tomorrow, around base jumping and other extreme adventures. You played a major role in a
Yes,
wrestling
sir.
movie, and you're stepping back into the competitive scene with RAF. And you've wrestled an Olympic champion, right? So
Sweet.
there's a lot going
Yeah,
on
that
there.
you make me sound
You've
good,
done a
man.
lot.
Thank
Yeah, and I
Thanks, man.
think that's one of the things that I kind of like. I want to dig into about like your story, but yeah, I mean, welcome to the show, man. I'm I'm,
Sweet.
I'm glad you're here. Yeah. So
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
I
I'm
mean,
excited.
yeah, absolutely. So you've got this a very storied, I want to say 15 years, 2 decades to look back on, right? And if I want to be
Mm.
honest, like the most interesting thing that I want to dig into is your perspective on the sport, right? More than just what your record
Cool, cool.
was. You've had extreme athletic success that puts you in like the 99th percentile of the sport while still having a feeling of that's something that I can relate to of like not having done what the ultimate goal is, right? But you've been a part
Sure.
of a team that's
Yeah,
won a
yeah, for
title.
sure.
You've coached at a program that was abruptly cut from the school, and so you've seen what the state of the sport looks like from all of those levels. You coach at youth clinics, and you see what the club scene looks like. You travel the country every summer, and now you're a part of the biggest thing that we've seen in the modern wrestling world, which is RAF. More than just a competitor, you also help run the clinics that they do. Um,
Mm.
so I mean, I'm laying it all out. You've got this perspective that like I think really needs to have the opportunity to kind of voice. So
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, let's start it off with the movie, right? You played Matt McDonough in
Okay.
Unstoppables. Unstoppable was this movie
Yeah.
about Anthony Robles won an NCAA title with no leg or with one leg. And the thing I kept coming back to, right, is you're playing McDonough, and he's the guy that Robles beats in the finals of 2011 NCAA finals. Um,
Mm.
so you get cast as like the champion who loses in the sports, one of the sport's most famous underdog stories. And so like what for you was it like to step into, the opposite end of that in terms of how we always frame ourselves whenever we are competing. We're always the good guy when we
Yeah,
go out there
yeah.
to step on the map, but you're sort of the
Right.
villain in the sport. So
Well,
what did
it
that
was it was cool
feel
because,
like?
like, well, first of all, hold on. Sorry, my bad. It was cool because, like, you know, one, how I got the role was just a cold email. I just cold emailed the director. So I saw a casting call, wrestlers wanted as extras. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be an extra, but I wonder if there's any parts for me. And I looked into like what was the options, for the movie. I saw that McDonough, it was about Robles. I emailed the director, who by the way was an Oscar winning editor. He won an Oscar for Argo and maybe Zero Dark 30, but he's good friends with Affleck, and Affleck obviously was in Argo. And I said, hey, I've wrestled Matt McDonough before. I can emulate his style. So the year after Robles won, or actually like 6 months later, we wrestled in the dual meet at Ohio State, which is pretty cool. So, I said that and he cast me. And being a villain, it didn't really feel like that for me. How the movie framed it, sure, I'm Ivan Drago. I'm the, scary Russian, in a sense with the Rocky theme. And yeah, I'm the villain. But, McDonough is just somebody that wants to win. He don't care if you got two legs or one leg. I want to freaking win, and playing that, it just felt like I was playing a fierce competitor. I didn't, it's villainized because we root for Anthony. But for McDonough's perspective, as the person who was playing McDonough, I feel like I was the hero where I just wanted to win, and you know what? I took the L. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the mindset I was like. I took this very seriously. I didn't take it as like wrestler who just gets to act. I took it as like an actor. Like on set, I wasn't talking to Jarrell, which is the actor. I was treating it like a real tournament. Like, hey, I'm not talking to my opponent, and I was taking it like very seriously. And fortunately, I've had a couple films actually I've been able to be a part of since then. But yeah, it was pretty easy kind of stepping into that, to be honest.
Nice. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, so and, that's, you it works really well for the guy that you need to emulate, right? Because you 'Cause you're an Iowa wrestler, and so you are just a fierce competitor. You're kind of stripped of personality, and you're just this guy who wants to go out there and win.
Right.
So that is interesting.
Yeah, they actually were like in the script writer, his name's John Hinman. He comes up with this part in the script where it's my choice in the third period. And in the script it says, McDonough says, put that bitch down or tell that bitch to go down. And I choose top. And I call him a bitch in the process while doing that. And I looked at
Mhm.
him on set and I was like, hey, listen, I know Matt. He's, a prick to wrestle, but he would never say this. Like he would
Right.
never say that. Iowa is, in a sense, a villain of the wrestling community, but they're not jerks in that capacity. They're jerks in how they wrestle. They'll give you an extra shove. They'll push you out of bounds. But he wouldn't call Anthony Robles a bitch mid-match. So they
Mhm.
listened to me. They had a little, I had a little bit of leeway in that where I got to like take that out of the script, which I think Matt appreciated. I told him later on that, hey, you were supposed to call Anthony the B word, and I got that. I got rid of that one for you.
Yeah. Yeah, did you feel like your expertise and your knowledge within the way the wrestling world is and the way it works, did you feel like that really played a factor? You were able to kind of help out with representation of what the sport looks like?
Yeah. For sure. I had a lot of, leeway. It's funny because like a lot of people there don't understand how hard wrestling is. You have 500 people running around on set.
Mhm.
Like I had my own stunt double. I freaking jump off buildings and I have a stunt double. Now, fortunately, the stunt double is for like, lighting. Hey, stand in there while we get the camera ready, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you have somebody there to fold your clothes in between takes. You have somebody that, sprays fake sweat on me. I have a makeup team. I have, 300 people in the stands to kind of fill the arena. You got all these moving parts, and you have a driver that drives you to and from set. You have all these things going on, and none of them understand how hard wrestling is.
Mhm.
So I'm wrestling Jarrell, and Jarrell is the actor. Now, is he a good wrestler? No, he's never really wrestled before, but he knew enough to act, right? For like the close-up shots. So we would do like a whole 3-minute first period, of the finals match. And we wrestled twice in the movie, which is different than the actual story, but we Hollywooded it a little bit to make it, more of an underdog story. We would wrestle for 3 minutes, and then we would, do 3 or 4 takes. And when we're wrestling, it was freaking hard. Like I'm giving a live feel. It's scripted, it's choreographed, and Jarrell is somebody where it's like, okay, I have to post, and that post signals, hey, that's your time to take a shot. Like I would maybe like, you know, shake my hand, or they would do something where I'd fix my headgear, and it would like be a tell, like, okay, single leg is coming, and I'd time it up. So I would do it 3 or 4 takes with Jarrell. And then Billy, the director, would say cut. And then he would send Anthony Robles in there. So I would get a fresh guy. So I was like doing shark bait on this freaking set where I was getting a fresh guy every 3 or 4 takes. And I was freaking exhausted. Like it's like the eighth take, 3 minute goes, and Anthony's a big freaking dude, and I'm just exhausted the entire time. So they were really cool about like, hey, are you okay? And I was fired up. I'm like, yeah, one more. Let's go. Fresh guy. Bring it in. Another angle. Wide angle. Close up. Let's get this go. I was fired
Yeah.
up. But man, I was freaking tired too. It was hard stuff every day.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it is were you the only like, did they have somebody who was like, "I'm the wrestling expert on the
Yes.
who was it not you?"
Choreographed. No, I was
Okay.
not the choreography coach. It was actually NCAA runner-up Brian Stith, who is a freaking stud from Arizona State. Actually
Mhm.
coached for I think a year or two at Arizona State with Anthony Robles when he was wrestling. And yeah, he was like the choreography coach. Corey Jansen, who is Jesse Jansen's brother.
Yep.
Corey Jansen wrestled at Harvard as well as Jesse Jansen did, who was OW at NCAA's.
Hmm.
They were both on set. We had various wrestlers that came through that weren't really like part of the choreography scene, but they were on set with us, for a day or two at times. Shakur Rashid. I'm trying to think of other people. Evan Wick was there for like a day or two. There was a bunch of wrestlers that would show up as background characters, which was pretty cool. But Brian Stith and Corey Jansen really had a lot of influence on what the scenes would look like wrestling wise.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's super helpful to if you want to make it look like a wrestling movie, you got to have those people involved because it is very difficult
Got it,
for
man.
people on the outside to know what it's like, as I'm sure it is for most sports. So this
Yeah,
all happens, and this is if we kind of frame out your timeline within the sport. Back in 2019, you had wrestled, your last match, and
correct.
you said that it had become a past life. Uh, you do this movie, and now since then you've walked back into wrestling via RAF, and you're wrestling some of the best
Yeah, yeah.
guys on earth. Uh, if if you had like really kind of surrendered the outcome, which is something you like to say, and moved on,
Yeah, it's one of my favorite phrases.
what was your motivation to come back?
Okay, so that's a great question. So the way I see motivation is a little bit different than the cliches that we say in like regular sports. So I always picture fire. And maybe, I've talked about this maybe on a podcast or two before, maybe you've seen it, but we always use phrases like I'm fired up, I'm burnt out. A fire is always the metaphor. Now, lighter fluid makes a fire go boom for like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, right? It gets it going for like 5 seconds. Lighter fluid is what I call an external motivator. So, an external motivator could be like, hey, my opponent down the street is doing an extra rep. So I better do 2 extra reps. It's an external motivator. It can get me fired up for a moment. My dad is watching. Hey, it's going to get me fired up for a moment. We always hear these stories like in basketball, right? Like, what was the dude that played for the Celtics? Isaiah Thomas. I think someone passed away in his family. He has one of the best games of his life that night. He had adversity he was going through. That external motivator, although it was, a sad story, it fires him up. He's doing something bigger than him for a moment. The thing about external motivators is they can be taken away at any time. That dad that is coming to watch me at practice, he might not show up today. I should still try hard. That opponent that I have down the street, he can get injured, right? I should still do 2 extra reps. Any external motivator can be taken away at any time. Lighter fluid can never be your flame. Now, what is your flame? It's internal. It's internal motivation that can't be moved. It's love. It's cheesy, it's corny, but it's love, right? It's the only thing that could never leave me. I love wrestling. No matter what. No matter if that opponent is down the street doing 2 extra reps or not doing 2 extra reps, I love wrestling. No matter if my dad is watching or not watching, I love wrestling. No matter if I'm dealing with adversity, right? And I have something happen, some adversity I'm going through in my life, I love wrestling. No matter what, I freaking love this. Now, do I love cutting weight? No. Do I love losing? Of course not. Do I love, doing sprints and doing overtime at practice and being exhausted? No, it's freaking hard. But at the end of the day, I love putting my shoe on the line and then seeing if I can do cool moves. That's a fun thing for me. So when I have the opportunity to, you know, show that love again, I'm going to jump at it. Right. And sometimes it's hard. There wasn't really a place for, I always call people the J.R. Smiths of the sport. There's only places in freestyle wrestling right now for the LeBrons, for the people that are the top of the top. That's all there's, but if you're not making world teams, people kind of look at you like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you still competing? And it's embarrassing. Right. And I felt that a little bit like, dude, I'm not making any teams. Like, why am I still wrestling? But RAF has given an opportunity for those. They're not the best guys in the world, but they're pretty good. They're the J.R. Smiths of the NBA. They still have a place to compete, right, in the sport with RAF. And that's something I jumped at because I freaking love wrestling. I love competing. And I'm just thankful, to be able to do that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that idea. I think wrestling has for a long time had a big issue with being able to have a platform and a spotlight for a broader set of the wrestling talent in the sport that is not just the top, not just the guys that are making world teams and going to the Olympics. So
For sure.
I totally agree with
For
that,
sure.
and I think like your your type of wrestler who's going to go out there and put it on the line every single time you wrestle and put on a show every single
Yeah.
time with your style
Try
of
to.
wrestling. Um, so I totally agree with that, and I think RAF is a great. I think it's a great thing for the sport. Um, no,
Yeah.
I do have
Yeah, a lot of
some.
people like compare it to like Savannah Bananas, and it's
Yeah,
like, dude, it's not. You're getting Sajalayev and Kyle Snyder in like a month.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's but I so like sometimes it'll feel like we get a little bit of Savannah Bananas, and then the next inning is like the All-Star game or something like that, right? Because we
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes we'll
yeah,
get,
yeah, for sure.
I watch a Muggsy Bowl junk wrestle, and I'm like,
Right. No, I get it.
yeah, but there's also like RAF needs that because he's got an audience, he's got a poll, he's going to bring
For
in
sure.
numbers, right? And he's going to be,
Yep.
some people might like watching him more than they like watching a guy who's going to win a 1-0 match against a world medalist, right? Even though it's not the high
Sure.
brow technique, you know, type of wrestling that like a 1% person like me is going to enjoy, Muggsy Bulljunk is going to go out there and put on a
Yep.
show. I do
Yep.
see an issue, right, where like we'll have a card and the headliner for it, right, is 46-year-old Uriah Faber, who's a legend
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
in the
get it. And
UFC,
Snyder's not the headline or something. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and so like it doesn't always sit right, but I also at the same time understand it. And what I kind of fear, right, is RAF going to be a showcase for the sport, or is it sort of the sport, or is it going to be like the garnish on an MMA celebrity card, right? Because that's what a lot of the UFC fighters have been coming in and sort of accelerating the development of the league. What does that look like a year from
For
now?
sure.
You know?
So, first of all, I think there is a delay in us, and I don't mean to cut you off. Like, if that happens, it's just because there's a
Hmm.
delay, and I think there's a gap.
Yeah.
But so okay, that's a great question. So I look at RAF is people have three views of who I am as an athlete, and I have the fourth. We have the promotion like Fox or the owners or whoever it is that's broadcasting the thing. They look at it as entertainment. Okay,
Hmm.
Muggsy's entertaining. Dylan Dennis or Colby, they might be kind of douchey, right? But they're entertaining.
Hmm.
They're very entertaining, depending on how you look at them, right? They're entertaining. Then you have the owners of RAF like Chad and Izzy. Okay, they look at it as that you're as an athlete, you're an investment. I'm going to invest in you. Hopefully, there's an ROI. You'll bring eyeballs to our sport, and we can capitalize and make money. Okay, that makes sense. And then you have the fans. The fans look at us as wrestlers, athletes. I look at us as storytellers. That's my word for us. So you have a storyteller can be entertaining, a storyteller is a wrestler, and a storyteller is a good person to invest. So right now, people in RAF, they're really good at wrestling, but there's also a lot of stories going on, right? There is Armin and Giorgio. Although Giorgio never wrestled in college, he had a storyline with Armin, and it was a good storyline. Regardless if they're going to beat Jason Nolf one day, which they probably never will, it's a good story. So I think in our sport, you watch the US Open right now, you watch World Team Trials. I have to make an account on USA Bracketing to find matches. Whereas in RAF, those matches are shoved down my throat. That's not just one step different. Oh, all you got to do is make an account. It's free. That's 30 steps different. I have to seek out matches to see who's up versus this getting rammed down my throat with advertisements and all over social media every single day. Wrestling has failed to tell a story for a very long time, but we have, I always say, Kardashian level drama in our sport. We just fail to package it in a good way. So yes, there is high level matches that might get snubbed for a MMA guy, for Uriah Faber, and I get that could have a sour taste in a wrestler's mouth, but we're not just marketing to wrestlers. I want people who just like combat sports to grab attention of RAF, and then they'll start seeing all of us. The lower people, not lower, but people that are unknown to them. Oh, wow, there's a story there. oh, there's a story there, and they're going to start watching. That's kind of how I see it. When you're in the arena, the MMA guys make sense. When you're on TV and maybe you're just a wrestling fan, maybe they don't make sense yet, and it might just be a little. You might be a little, hesitant to it, and I totally understand and respect that.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally understand that perspective, and I agree with it. Um, what I look for is uh sort of the story of what you talk about in terms of that's kind of what I've started to pivot towards with this. Literally, what we're doing right now is
Yeah,
people who have unique
yeah, this is
perspectives
great.
into the sport, people who have just stories to tell. Now, is it always easy for USA Wrestling to host a tournament and then for them to be able to build up a storyline around it whenever it's a bracket of
Right,
128 wrestlers and they
it's
can't
tough.
really?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yes, for
So
sure.
being like, that's sort of, yeah, there's probably no solution to that. You have Final X, which is kind of how we've
Mm.
started to shift
Thank you. Yeah.
towards that. But yeah, I
Mm.
think RAF very much
But
so
but
has
we have to
reduced
keep
that
in mind,
friction.
right? Like it's
Go
not
ahead.
it's not right now a great product. Like I
Mhm.
love tournaments because I'm a wrestler and I grew up in it. But for somebody that's never seen a tournament, sitting on a cooler all day long, eating, bagels and cream cheese and waiting 4 hours for the person that they came for to show up and wrestle and knowing the matchups in between weigh-ins and actual like 2 hour window starting the event, it's not a great product to sell yet. So if a card is an easier sell marketing wise, then I'm all for it. I
Yeah.
love a tournament because I wrestle in it, but I totally understand how a lot of people might not like that. You know what I mean? And if that makes me sound like a little, like a contrarian in the wrestling world, maybe I am sometimes. I don't know. On Twitter, I am for sure.
Okay, let's keep going. So we were talking about advertising the sport and how it can be sort of difficult. I do actually want to circle back to that for like
Yep.
for college wrestling. As a matter of fact, let's just start there. College wrestling
Okay.
is sort of the pinnacle of the sport for
For sure.
a lot of wrestlers. As a matter of fact, I've talked to guys that I was on college teams with, and I asked them, I was like, "Would you rather be a national champ, like a D1 national champ, or a world silver medalist?" And or
People pick
yeah,
college.
a lot of people want to be NCAA champs. It's a bigger thing,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. For sure. Status, all that. Yep.
it's a big deal, but I sort of fear for the health of the environment, especially with name, image, and likeness, and
Yeah.
how big basketball and football are becoming, and how much they're kind of drowning out the Olympic sports. And you've got a bit of a
Right.
perspective on this. You were a part of a coaching
Yeah.
staff for a program that got cut, and you've been at the top. You've
Yeah.
been a part of a team that's won a national title. You've been a part of a team that's had to been cut. You've got both ends of the spectrum. What where are we? Is college wrestling rotting away? Are we gonna be like college gymnastics where there's just a handful of teams? What does the future look like?
Right. Right. So that's fun. That's interesting. So I've been with a school that has hundreds of millions of dollars in their athletic department, Ohio State. I've been at a school
Mhm.
that's like a middle ground school, Rutgers. I've been at a school that has to fundraise for every freaking penny of their budget, Kent State. And then I've been at a school that gets cut, Cleveland State. So I've been at every single tier of the spectrum. And the Ohio States and even the Rutgers are probably going to be safe. But like what worries me is not just NIL. Okay, I want a kid to make money. I don't want some school making a bunch of money on selling jerseys for some college football player and they never see a lick of it. I get that. I understand the argument for name, image, and likeness. I also understand I don't want to keep kids at a school, right? And keep them hostage for transfer portal, but it sucks when it's both at the same time. And then you throw in rev share all at the same time. And it will harm these lower schools. It just will. If I am a round of 12 guy at a Bloomsburg, Kent State, Cleveland State, any of these smaller programs, if you're a round of 12 guy, and then all of a sudden a Big Ten school offers you, a $50,000, $40,000 NIL deal, why wouldn't you leave? It makes sense to leave. Like, why wouldn't you? And if that continues to happen, then you will see these smaller schools developing kids first, second year, maybe, third year, maybe, and then lose them the second they're on the brink of accomplishing something. I just lost you. Are you there? Oh, there you
We're
are.
back. We're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sorry about that.
hmm I lost you at we will see these smaller schools.
We'll see these smaller schools start to, lose kids that, they developed, first year, second year. Now they're on the brink of about to All American or about to be really good, and they'll get sniped. And right now, I don't. It's hard because I don't blame people for operating within the law, right? Even if the law, I deem it immoral, it is legal right now, right? I don't, blame somebody if you're allowed to not pay your taxes or you're allowed to take advantage of something. If you're allowed to take advantage of something, hey, it's the system's problem, not yours. So if you take an athlete from a school, it might be a little unethical, but that athlete, I don't blame them for taking an opportunity, but it is hurting these small programs. It really is, and you see it with these schools, dropping wrestling. Now, I am an alarmist a little bit. I don't want to see wrestling losing programs. I want, you know 300 wrestling teams. I want kids to have opportunities to wrestle in the sport that I love. But I just don't. I don't know how it could survive at this rate with everything going on. It's a scary place that we're in my opinion.
Yeah. So to you, does it feel like something where they need to put more guardrails around the exploitative nature of things? Do
Yeah,
people need to support their
bingo.
programs more? Just baseline with attendance and donations and everything,
Yeah.
all
I
of
mean,
that.
first of
So
all,
it's
yes,
more of the same.
go to your local. If you if so, I think there is still a delay, by the way. But okay, first of all, 100% yes. Go to your freaking local college programs. Go watch. You don't have to donate money. If you don't have enough money to donate, I'm not gonna, finger wag and say you should be doing this. Like, of course not. But if you have the opportunity to go, 30 minutes down the road, an hour down the road, and watch high level college wrestling, go do it. That goes a very long way. Attendance is a huge indicator of a program's success with the athletic department. Secondly, when it comes to I'm sorry, I'm trying to circle back to your original question. Oh, we're just gonna keep losing programs and whatnot. There are some people out there, like I know Andy Rovid always talks about on Twitter how he wants like there to only be 20 programs. I don't want that because it scares me that kids won't have opportunities.
Yeah.
It might be more competitive. Sure, it might be more competitive, but kids do not have opportunities to get a education and then wrestle at a division 1 level, and I want that. There is some kids that I would have never gone to college. I would have started working for my dad had I not had wrestling. And
Mhm.
that's a big deal, being able, some kids that maybe were less fortunate than me, to get a college degree. That's a big deal, and I want those kids to have that opportunity.
Yeah. So I 100% agree. Obviously, I'm in the exact same boat. I would never have been a Division One wrestler if there were only 20 programs. If this is because college wrestling is it is an absolute necessity to have within the pipeline of the existence of the sport. So is this the weakest point along the chain, right? Because you get to see what things look like at the youth and club level. You get to see what they look like at the collegiate level and at the pinnacle of the sport. So, where from your end is like where are we doing the best and where are we struggling the most? I would assume college for that one.
You know, yeah, I think youth is doing really well right now. Women's wrestling is doing phenomenal right now. We are really starting to see a lot of saturation of clubs pop up, even in like lesser states that you wouldn't traditionally think about as far as wrestling. I don't want to get smoke from a bunch of like fans from these states, but states like North Carolina, South Carolina, you're seeing these clubs pop up, and it's really good for the sport. So youth
Mhm.
involvement is high. There is just slowly as it funnels towards the Division 1 level, less opportunities for the amount of youth kids that are wrestling and partaking in sports to wrestle at the Division 1 level. Is that good? Is that bad? I guess time will tell. right? How that goes. My fear is if there is less Division I teams, there will be less high school teams. That is a fear of mine. And I think, like you said, college is the jumping off point for an indicator for how healthy the sport is for sure. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of what you were getting at. The Olympics being cut is scary in 2016 or whenever it was 2012
Yeah.
before they fortunately brought it back. If something like that were to ever happen again, that's a scary place to be for sure. So I think our strongest point is the youth level right now. I don't want to call it a weak point, but my biggest question mark is what's going to happen in the future with small schools in Division One, and it's just a worry of mine. And I don't want to be a negative Nancy. I don't want to be somebody who just is pessimistic all the time, but it does make me nervous.
Mhm. Yeah, it I think it should be the top concern for everybody within the sport, because you're right. I
For
think
sure.
the youth level is exploding, and that is in part due to uh, women's wrestling is it's either the fastest or the second fastest growing sport in the country, which is awesome. That's great
Dude,
to see.
they're crushing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it might even be what saves collegiate wrestling, since
Men's.
Title IX was a big proponent of the cutting of wrestling programs, because there was no women's
Sure.
counterpart. But now that there is, you have no excuse there. Um,
Yeah,
for
it helps.
because you go around the country, you see, you do the 60 clinics in 60 days, and you did one for my club down here in Southern Alabama last summer. And one of the things you said then, and one of the things you see people whenever they record your clinics online, is surrender the outcome. And I mentioned that earlier, but when you say that to a kid, right? I mean, let's take a 16-year-old kid. He's kind of on the cusp of like what he wants to do, and he's sort of like almost there. He's figuring it out, and he's at the point where like recruiting, scholarship, and his future kind of depends
Mhm.
on actually having an outcome to like back up his potential. So how do you sell the
The
idea of like
credibility.
yes? How do
Okay.
you how do you
That's
how
a
do you
great
sell
question.
how do you sell you not caring about winning to a kid who like can't really afford to lose?
Right. Okay. Okay. So at the end of the day, I'm never going to convince myself that I don't want to win. I do. I really want to win. If I want, like, this is a silly, cheesy, corny analogy, but it's kind of like a crush that you have, right? If you're in high school, pretend, and you want to ask somebody to prom or whatever it is. If I am like all over this person and, oh, I have a crush on you, I have a crush on you, I have a crush on you, we know stories all the time. That person probably doesn't like you that much. But if you act like Mr. Cool, all of a sudden you're mysterious. That person starts coming around a lot more. You're interesting. You're intriguing. Whatever. Outcomes are kind of like my crush. If I am like staring at the outcome all the time, I have paralysis happen. I don't want to do any moves. I want to avoid certain brackets. I want to avoid certain tournaments because certain people will be there. I just want to win. I just want to win. But if I avoid the outcome, if I avoid my crush, if I ignore my crush, and I focus on controllable things, well, that outcome, byproduct of that, starts coming around a lot more. So the theory is if I focus on controllables, those outcomes take care of themselves. And I always give the example. So in December, I climbed the tallest mountain in Argentina. It's actually the tallest mountain outside of the Himalayas. So unless you've been to Nepal, Pakistan, China area, Bhutan, you've never seen a mountain as big as this. Tallest mountain in South America. It's called Aconcagua. Aconcagua is 23,000 feet. It's a 14-day, 15-day climb. And if I'm looking at the top of the mountain and I take a step, it doesn't really look any closer. The summit is the result, the outcome, the accolade. And if I take another step, it doesn't look closer. If I take another step, it doesn't look closer. And a whole day has gone by, and I turn back, and base camp is like right there. It doesn't really look like I went that far. If I surrender the outcome, and I focus on the next controllable thing in front of me, which is my next step. Well, I can control that. You know what? I got some energy. I'm going to take a step. Hey, I can control another step. I can take a step. And I focus on the controllable decisions in front of me, right? My food, how much water I intake, how much gear I try to bring, my effort and attitude on the trek. All of a sudden, I look up 5 days later. Hey, I'm halfway up. So a byproduct of surrendering the outcome is the outcome, right? So that's the theory. And when you put yourselves in more difficult positions because you're not looking at the result and fearing the results, you get better at wrestling. So I'm kind of a run on sentence right now, but last little analogy because I like analogies. I always talk about wrestling is either a casino or an investment, a real life investment, a stocks, crypto, real estate, whatever it is. If I take $100 and I go to a casino, there's a chance I win today. There's a chance, right? If I go to the casino every day for a year, well, that chance goes a lot lower if I'm going to win at the end of the year. A casino is stalemating, trying to avoid positions, trying to win 2-1, whatever it is. It might work today. You don't get better at wrestling just winning 2-1 and thumb blocking if you do it all year long. But if you put that same money into an investment, you're not going to see more money today. You might lose the position today by trying moves. But at the end of the year, because you tried more moves, well, you've been in more positions. And because you've been in more positions, you're probably going to be better at wrestling. So a year from now, you're probably going to have more money. You're going to be a better wrestler. So I always tell kids, yes, surrender the outcome means the outcome is less important than improving. But it doesn't mean that you won't have anything to sell the program, to sell the colleges at the end of the year. It means you'll probably be better at wrestling. And because you're better at wrestling, you'll probably have those outcomes that you can probably market, sell, and give to programs. That's kind of how I see it. So that's the theory of how hopefully, ideally, it should go.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and so you mentioned in there that you like analogies, and that's I think that's
I do.
really well exemplified in the brand that you've built, Live No Tomorrow. That is basically an analogy for the way that you live your life. And so
Yes.
I think I think there's two parts to this, right? Because you mentioned you'd be working for your dad. Your dad is somebody who's built brands, right? That is his sort of careers. He's taught companies how to engineer brands that people can't live without. And you've even said before that like, your delivery is something that you've adopted from him. So whenever
Yeah.
you
He's a
take these
speaker. So
two, right? Whenever you take these two things together, how much is Live No Tomorrow like? How is it something that you've packaged as a product that you can sell, and it's or it's something that you really live? Where does it sit?
yeah. Well, I mean, I live it. I freaking try to live it at least. But live no tomorrow for a lot of people listening. It's not go jump off a building and base jump. It doesn't mean go risk your life. What live no tomorrow means is don't wait for tomorrow to do something that you've been wanting to do passionately. So a lot of people don't want to start a podcast. They're nervous what people think. Oh, I'll do it when I'm ready. Oh, I'm a little bit nervous. What if people make fun of it? What if I'm not good at it yet? What if I don't have the equipment yet? And there's never a perfect time to do something. A lot of people I think it's from the movie Blow with Johnny Depp. They talk about like, a lot of people watch life pass them by while they're making grand plans for it. Oh, I'll go to Italy one day. I'll start my clothing brand one day. I'll start posting fitness content and being a YouTuber with fitness content one day. And Live No Tomorrow is don't be reckless. You don't have to quit your job to be a TikToker, but start doing stuff. Start it, right? And that's what I try to inspire people to do. What's funny about you bringing up my dad is I was coaching at Harvard and I was living pretty crazy, just, traveling as much as I can and base jumping and doing all this crazy stuff. And I've been thinking about like, hey, I need a hashtag to kind of like just, you know, market my lifestyle. And my dad calls me one day and he's the opposite of me. He pays a parking ticket before he even gets it. He is just by the book. He loves an Excel sheet. Like I'm more abstract and creative. He is like analytical and, he gets things done the second they need to get done. And my brain is all over the place. So he calls me and he's yelling at me one day. He's like, "You live life like a freaking crazy person, like you're on permanent spring break, blah, 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 blah. You can't live like this. You have to lock in and make money." And then he goes, "You don't care about tomorrow. You only care about today." And he freaking hangs up with me. He just give me the dad speech, right? My dad is very supportive of what I do, but he was giving me the dad speech. And I remember him hanging up, and I was like, "Dude, that was sick. No tomorrow, right?" His criticism of me kind of started my brand, which I wanted to, then share with the world. So that's kind of how that got started. And yes, to answer your question, I try to live it. Yes, I try to monetize it and make it a brand that I can evangelize to the world, but I definitely live it for sure. I try to my best.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting that you talk about like things like surrendering the outcome and live no tomorrow. And the thing that you like to do in your free time is base jump, which has got to be one of the higher mortality rate hobbies to have in the world. Uh,
For sure.
and I imagine it comes with a lot of fear, right? And so like you jump off
Yeah.
buildings and bridges and the cliffs, and you say nothing's scarier than the Big Ten tournament, right? Can you unpack that and
Dude,
like what it
that's a
is about
fact.
competition? Yeah, what outranks it?
Yeah.
Like why?
Yeah. For some reason, it's just like, you know, first of all, we have a phrase in skydiving and base jumping that fear is your friend. Fear makes you check your parachute twice. Now, do I want to do an extra rep in wrestling because I'm scared to lose? No, I don't want that to be like my sole motivator. Remember that internal motivation, that fire that I have. It should operate out of love, like ideally. But hey, if I do an extra rep or check my parachute because hey, I want to make sure that I cross my T's and dot my I's. It's not the end of the world. Fear, you can lean into fear. I'll never lie to myself and say, I'm fearless. I'm not scared. I'm freaking scared sometimes. Sometimes I'm scared to lose. Sometimes I'm scared to jump off this building. Sometimes I'm scared to, jump in with sharks. Sometimes I'm scared. And I'll own that. But when we say it out loud, it has less power over us in our head. And for some reason, when it comes to base jumping, it's scary. When it comes to climbing big mountains, it's scary, it's hard. But when it comes to something that I love, like wrestling, for some reason, it is just so much harder emotionally for me just because I care so much more. Like I love base jumping, I love my life, but my life, who I am as a person, is a wrestler. And it just matters to me because I've invested so much
Mhm.
time, I've put so much time into it, and being good matters. It matters to me. How I conduct myself in this sport really matters. And going through the Big Ten tournament, there's nothing like it, man. It's a war zone. It is, right? It
Mhm.
sucks
Yeah.
in the best way. So I will always say that is the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than climbing any mountain in the world is wrestling somebody from Iowa and then Penn State and then Minnesota back to back to back. That freaking sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so what give me the rundown of what a year in Johnny DiJulius's life is like. Because I know that you do the clinics during the summer, you do some competitions now in RAF, you've had coaching
Yep.
stints, but what's the chill period for Johnny DiJulius?
When I chill, I recharge the social battery. I definitely am like, I don't party. I've never drank in my entire life. I've never smoked anything in my entire life. And that's not, I'm not better than anybody that does drink. I am a pretty free will person. I couldn't care less what anybody chooses to do. Just for me, a lot of good things that have happened in my life are because I don't partake in a lot of nightlife stuff. Um, so I sit on my couch. I love movies. I love TV shows. I love binging TV shows. So when I do have downtime, I have downtime. Like I am not moving. But a typical year, like last year, for example, 2025, I went to about 25 countries, 20 of them being new countries that I haven't been to before. I try any free time I have to really go to as many countries as I can. When it comes to summertime, late May, all of June, all of July, and maybe a fraction of August. I think I saw you, July 31st, August 1st, sometime last year.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
do a clinic every single day. Every single day I do a clinic. And then from you, I flew out of New Orleans when I saw you. I flew from New Orleans to Europe. I didn't come back, right, from the beginning of August until mid-October. So that's typically what I try to do. I try to do as many clinics as I can in the summer, try to get to as many kids as I can see all summer long, make some money, do some clinics all over the country, and then go explore. I'm in a fortunate period of my life where I have a relationship that is the most important thing to me. But we don't have kids yet. We don't have a family yet, so we are able to go explore and see the world. And my goal is to visit every country on planet Earth, all 195. So that is a goal of mine, and hopefully that gets done soon.
Yeah, are you trying to get that done before the end of the decade?
Ooh, 2030. That's a tight. That's a tight window. How people. label a country is very, as you can imagine, geopolitical, like anything. There's
Mhm.
193 United Nations countries, two observer states, which is the Vatican and then Palestine, which obviously is already controversial. But I grant a country sovereignty if they claim independence. So there's something called a de facto state. A de facto state would be like Taiwan. Taiwan claims independence. China doesn't, recognize it. We're getting kind of, off the topic with wrestling, but any country that claims independence, I want to visit. Northern Cyprus, then the Kurdish region of Iraq, which is a very niche, small area. South Ossetia in Georgia, not in Georgia. It's technically independent. Whatever. Right? There's all. I want to go to
Mhm.
all of them. So my number is actually like 250, right? Which I don't know if I can accomplish that by 2030, bro. That'd be a freaking tall task.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And then, so you said you like to totally recharge when you're off. What's the
Yeah.
best movie you've seen or your favorite movie?
Dude, I have a freaking letterbox, man. First of all, Unstoppable is the best freaking movie now.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but I have a letterbox. Yeah. I have a letterbox that I rate every single movie that I've ever seen. And I have like, I don't know, 1,500 movies on there. So I take my movie watching very seriously. I like the movie bro movies that everybody likes. The Interstellars, the Inceptions. Those are great. Christopher Nolan is obviously awesome. I like a lot of period movies, like The Last Duel, Ridley Scott type movies, Kingdom of Heaven. Those are great. The best recent movie I've seen, dude, the 2020s have kind of stunk for movies, in my opinion. But there's, Project Hail Mary just came out. That was solid. Trying to think of a really good one I've seen recently. I really like the 90s. Dude, the 90s was just like, I don't know if it's nostalgia and I have that bias towards it, but the 90s was just so good for movies, in my opinion. Everything there, it's just so rewatchable to me. So it's hard to pick. It's like picking a favorite food. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
I
Um,
just I just recently rewatched Foxcatcher with my girlfriend because she hadn't seen it, and she's somebody who's never been a part of wrestling. I took her to the Nationals this year for the first time. She's never really seen wrestling before. First of all, I can pivot and just talk about that all day. The problems that NCAA has when it comes to people that don't know what the heck they're watching. But she watched
mhm.
Foxcatcher and really liked it. Actually, let me kind of pivot back to that real quick. My girlfriend was sitting in the stands at NCAA's, and as somebody who's never seen wrestling and doesn't know what's going on, there is no weight classes that signify who's on the mat. There is no, we know that T-bone is blood brown on the ends, semis in the middle. There's nobody that tell like wrestling is a very if you know sport. You have to be in the know to appreciate what's going on. And it doesn't make it easy if someone's flipping through the channels. Why would somebody stay and watch? Yes, it does say it on TV. It's easier to see quarterfinals and semifinals, but they don't do a good job at the event of packaging the product. If you drag somebody there that's never seen wrestling, who are these people? What are they? There's two clocks. Why is there two clocks? Well, one's riding time and one's, the actual match time. Okay, what's that? Well, if it gets over a minute, it's a point. Okay, well, hey, it's not over a minute right now. That person just got a point. Oh, that's because it's overtime. It's different now. There's so many things that you have to explain, and it's tough, right? It's not as easy as ball in hoop. That's easy to understand. Now, I want wrestling to keep updating rules as wrestlers exploit the rules. That makes sense, but I also want them to be digestible. And that balance is a hard balance to find. Again, I'm sounding like a contrarian. I'm sounding pessimistic about the sport. I freaking love wrestling. Okay? But at the end of the day, I still think certain criticisms are valid.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right with the fact that wrestling's hard to understand. My wife, she played D3 basketball. She doesn't know wrestling at all. And I've tried. Maybe one day we'll get her out to NCAs. But uh I think with the sport, the more two things get solved from one thing. The simpler you make the rules, the easier it is for refs to implement them and for fans to understand them. I think if you can do both of those things,
For sure.
you're in a better spot. Um, and I think that's important for the health of the sport as well, having fans. So totally agree.
It really is. I mean, you
Um,
see, you see, wrestlers are creative, right? Like they will capitalize or take advantage of a rule if that rule takes a few years. For example, like three point takedowns implemented, and the first year, wrestlers had to adjust. They were used to the 2 point takedown. They had to adjust to the 3 point takedown. Coming, what has it been, 2 or 3 years since it's been implemented? Wrestlers are now figuring out, okay, if I shoot, that opens up a lot of risk. I could win in overtime. I could win on rideouts. And at the national tournament, I think this year, if you look at Matt Savant, shout out to Matt Savant on Twitter, he ran like a bunch of numbers, and there was more overtime, like percentage wise, this year than ever before. And I think less points offensively scored, even including Messabrink's tech fall in the finals, than past like 10 years or so. I forget what the numbers is. I don't want to butcher them, but it was
Mhm.
it was interesting to look at those numbers. Are people shooting less, even though the takedown is worth more because it's a higher risk to shoot now? Are people relying on defense? So wrestlers will exploit. So rules do need to be updated. I know I'm run on sentence right now, but I'm only doing this because there is a delay. I don't want to like start talking into each other. One thing I want to add to this is there's something called an edge case, and then there's a perverse outcome when it comes to like implementing rules or anything like that. An edge case is an outlier. So, for example, we all know somebody that has died, not died. We've all heard a story of somebody dying from a car accident because they couldn't get their seatbelt off. People hear that story and they start thinking, oh, seatbelts are bad. We can't wear seatbelts. Look, that person drowned because they couldn't get out of their car. That's an edge case. That's not the average. Usually it's probably good to put a freaking seatbelt on, right? That's an edge case. It's an outlier. It's anecdotal. It's not representative of the actual data. But then there's something called a perverse outcome. A perverse outcome is when a rule is implemented and it has an opposite effect, right? Like not to bring up COVID or whatever, but masks were probably implemented thinking it was going to be a good idea, and the perverse outcome was people were really resistant to them. They didn't like them. They felt like it, attacked their freedom, whatever, right? Whatever people thought. A perverse outcome is how I see the 3 point takedown. It was intended to add offense, and the perverse effect happened. People are shooting less because it's more of a risk because of how much that takedown is worth.
I agree, and I want to tack on maybe another element that actually might even be more of an contributor to it, which is something that we've seen this year, and the fact that refs can't seem to determine what a takedown is. They don't know
What's a
where control
takedown?
is.
Dude,
R-
you're talking my
Yeah,
language now.
yeah. What's a takedown? Understanding reaction time. I mean, I saw so many times guys would get in on legs at NCAAs this year, and then there would just be a half-second stutter, and then their opponent would funk roll. And I'm like, I've never 10 years ago, if you saw this many funk rolls, people would be losing their minds, right? And so I
For
think there's a lot
sure.
of contributing factors to it. Maybe the 3 point takedown does work if the refs can say this is what reaction time means. This is what a takedown is. They make those things more cut and dry.
Yep.
Maybe things work out. Maybe if you disincentivize the takedowns by bringing them back down to 2 points, maybe that fixes things as well. I just think that remove the subjectivity from the rules, and we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I remember what was it, McNelly and Rocco in the finals of Big Tens? I forget where they wrestled, but it was like everybody in their mind, not no fault to Rocco, it was just a wrestling match, but
Mhm.
everybody thought like, hey, that should be, even if the rules don't dictate or indicate that's a takedown, that should have been a takedown. Or I think we all kind of agreed on that instance. And I agree. Reaction time is a weird one right now where it feels very gray area. What is it? What's a catch in
Mhm.
football, right? What's a takedown in wrestling?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Totally agree. So Johnny, this has been great. I don't want to keep you for too long because I know that you're on the road and your days are long. And I don't want to make
Dude,
them too long
after
for you.
you, actually, I
Um,
have I got I got my Spanish. So I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I have my Spanish teacher calling me in like 15 minutes. So I'm excited. So I get that. That's what I got next. Another
okay.
video call, but learning Spanish.
Awesome. Perfect timing then. You get a little bit of a break after this before that. So this has been great. I wish
I
we could talk
appreciate it,
more.
man.
Honestly, that if I do this again, I would love to have you in person, maybe get you down here for a clinic again and do it in person.
Let's do it.
This was great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So hey
Thank you.
man, awesome. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. One, Live No Tomorrow is my brand. It's my, I don't want to call it merch, right? Because that's kind of, a dead term, overused at this point. But it's how I, try to live life. It's not about just supporting me. I want to, inspire other people to live no tomorrow. Obviously, if you want to see some cool stuff, follow me on my socials, just my name.
Mhm.
And, I haven't talked about this yet, but I got something in the works coming out this month, an app. And I'm not going to say more, but there's some good stuff coming out soon. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this was great. Loved having you on, man. And looking forward to more. So thank you.
Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Yep. And for those listening, hope you enjoyed, and you have a good day as well.